I stared at my phone at 2 a.m, and my hands were shaking. The text sat there on my screen like a poisonous gift wrapped in pretty paper. I know I hurt you. I've been doing a lot of thinking. I realize now how much I took you for granted. Can we talk? I miss you. I miss us. I felt that familiar tug in my chest, that desperate hope that maybe, just maybe, this time would be different, that he finally saw me. But somewhere deeper, I felt something else, a cold, sick knowing. I have been here before. Different words, same empty promise. And here's what I'm going to show you in the next few minutes. I'm going to walk you through exactly how I fell for it, how I saw through it, and most importantly, how you can recognize when someone is hoovering you back into a relationship that will only continue to drain you. Because a fake apology is not an apology at all. It's a tactical retrieval operation. And once you see the pattern, you can never unsee it. Let me take you back to the beginning, because this wasn't the first time I left him. The first time I tried to leave was 8 months into the relationship. He had canceled our anniversary dinner without warning, just sent me a text 3 hours before. Something came up with work. Let's reschedule. No apology, no explanation. When I called him, upset, he sighed like I was being dramatic. Why are you making this into such a big deal? It's just dinner. I felt invisible. So I told him I needed space. And that's when the apology came. He showed up at my apartment with flowers. His eyes were red, like he'd been crying. He said work had been stressful, and he took it out on me. He said he loved me more than anything, and he couldn't imagine his life without me. I melted. We talked for hours. He promised he would do better and would make it up to me. For 2 weeks, he was perfect, attentive, sweet. I planned a beautiful weekend getaway. I thought I had gotten through to him. Then the mask slipped again. It started small. He stopped texting me back as quickly. When I mentioned weekend plans, he'd say, "Let me check my schedule," then forget to follow up. 3 months later, we were right back where we started. He criticized how I dressed. He rolled his eyes when I talked about my day. When I got a promotion at work, he nodded and said, "That's great," then immediately changed the subject to himself. When I told him I felt unsupported, he looked at me like I was crazy. "You're being too sensitive. What more do you want?" I started to feel like I was losing my mind, but deep down, I knew something was wrong. So I left again. This time, the apology was bigger. He sent me a handwritten letter, 4 pages long, detailing everything he loved about me, everything he had done wrong, everything he was going to change. "I've been selfish," he wrote. "I've been taking you for granted. I see that now. You deserve someone who celebrates you. I want to be that person. Please give me one more chance." I read that letter 5 times. I wanted so badly to believe him. My friends told me not to go back. They said they had watched me shrink. They said I wasn't the same person anymore. But I didn't listen, because when he apologized, I felt powerful. I felt like I'd finally gotten him to see my worth. So I went back. And for a month, he was the man I'd fallen in love with. I thought I had loved him back to health, but I was wrong. It happened on a random Tuesday night. We were watching a movie, and I mentioned taking a pottery class with my friend Sarah, something I used to love before I met him. He didn't even look at me. "Pottery? Really? That sounds like a waste of time." I felt my stomach drop. "What do you mean?" He shrugged. "It just seems pointless. You're not going to become a professional potter. Why bother?" This was the man who had written me a 4-page letter about supporting my dreams. "You said you wanted to support the things I'm passionate about," I said quietly. He sighed, that same exhausted sigh I had heard 100 times before. "I do support you. I'm just being honest. You're too sensitive. You always take everything I say the wrong way." And there it was, the switch, the immediate flip back to the critical, dismissive version that made me feel small. I realized something that made my blood run cold. He hadn't changed at all. He had just been playing a role long enough to get me back. And now that I was back, the mask was off. I felt like I had been conned. Because I had been. I started researching that night. I kept replaying every interaction, every apology, every promise. And that's when I found the term Hoovering, named after the vacuum cleaner brand, because that's exactly what it is. They suck you back in. I learned that he had created this perfect version of himself at the beginning, this charming persona designed to hook me, but it wasn't real. And I learned something that hit me like a truck. He didn't love me, the real me. He loved a version of me he had created in his mind during the early days, a version that adored him, that played the role he had assigned to me. Every time I deviated from that version, he punished me. He criticized me. He withdrew. He made me feel crazy. And every time I tried to leave, he hoovered me back in. He performed the apology just long enough to reel me back in, then went right back to who he really was. Because the apology was never about change. It was about control. After the pottery class comment, I left. I blocked his number. I unfriended him on social media. I told my friends not to pass along any messages. For 3 weeks, I felt free. I started therapy. I reconnected with friends. I signed up for that pottery class. And then he found a way in. He sent me an email, a long, vulnerable email. He said he had started therapy. He said he was confronting his childhood trauma. He said he understood now why he had hurt me. I'm not asking you to take me back, he wrote. I just want you to know that I see it now. I see what I did. I'm sorry. I'm truly, deeply sorry. You deserve better. I felt my resolve waver. This sounded different. He wasn't asking for anything. I drafted a response. I almost sent it, but then I stopped. I asked myself, what am I hoping for here? And I realized the truth. I was hoping that if I responded, he would continue to prove himself. And maybe, eventually, we could try again. I was already getting hoovered, and I hadn't even responded yet. I didn't respond to his email. For 2 days, nothing happened. Then I got another email. Did you get my last message? I really poured my heart out to you. I'd appreciate at least an acknowledgement. The warmth was gone. The vulnerability was replaced with entitlement. I still didn't respond. 3 days later, another email. I can't believe you're ignoring me after I apologized. This is exactly what I'm talking about. You always play the victim. I'm trying to take accountability, and you won't even give me the courtesy of a response. You're unbelievable. And there it was. The fake apology, the therapy talk, it was all bait. When I didn't take the bait, he showed me who he really was. Angry, entitled, vindictive. The apology was never about making amends. It was about control. And when that didn't work, he punished me. I started talking to others who had been in relationships like this. Every single one had a hoovering story. One woman's ex sent a gift basket 3 months after she left. When she didn't respond, he showed up at her workplace. Another's ex faked a medical emergency to get her to visit him in the hospital. When she arrived, he was fine. The tactics varied, but the goal was always the same: retrieval. They weren't apologizing because they felt remorse. They were apologizing because they needed their supply back. And the apology was the most effective tool because it targeted what we all want most: to be seen, to be valued, to matter. Hoovering works because we're wired for connection. We're wired to forgive. When someone we love apologizes, our brains light up. We feel validated. But the apology is not a doorway to change. It's a doorway back into the cycle. They apologize because you're threatening their control. You're not playing your role in their fantasy anymore. So they hoover. They cry. They beg. They promise. They become the person you fell in love with, the person you've been desperately trying to get back. And it feels so good to have that person back, even temporarily, that you ignore the voice in your gut. But that voice is right. Every time I went back, I lost a little more of myself. I stopped trusting my instincts. I stopped believing in my own perceptions of reality. I stopped sharing good news with him because he always minimized it. I stopped sharing bad news because he treated my pain like an inconvenience. I learned to keep my inner world locked away. I became a shell. I became the version he wanted me to be because being the real me was too dangerous. And every time I went back, I reinforced the lesson that my boundaries didn't matter, that I was willing to tolerate anything as long as he said the right words. I taught him that the apology was enough, that he didn't have to change. He just had to perform remorse long enough. That email where he called me unbelievable was the moment I decided I was done being hoovered. I was done letting someone manipulate me with empty words. I realized something fundamental. I'd been going to the bread store for milk. I kept expecting empathy from someone only capable of mimicking it, and I had been enabling the cycle by accepting the apology as proof of change instead of demanding action. I had to accept reality as it is, not as I wished it were. He was never going to change. The man I fell in love with never existed. It was a performance. The real him was the one who criticized me, who dismissed me, who made me feel small. And I had to accept that I couldn't love him back to health. I couldn't fix him. There was no one there to rescue. After I ignored his angry email, he tried one more time. He sent a gift to my workplace, a necklace I had mentioned liking months ago. The note said, "I remember everything about you. I remember what makes you smile. I'm sorry for the last email. I was hurt, but I still love you." My coworkers thought it was romantic, but I felt cold. I felt calculated. He didn't send that gift out of love. He sent it to prove a point. But I wasn't special. I was useful. I played a role in his fantasy, and he wanted me back in position. But I knew better now. So I donated the necklace. I didn't respond. I documented everything. And eventually, after 6 weeks of attempts, he stopped. Because when the Hoover doesn't work, when you don't provide supply, they move on. They find someone else to play the role. You were never irreplaceable. You were just convenient. If I could go back and talk to myself the first time I left, here's what I would say. Watch what they do, not what they say. An apology means nothing without sustained behavioral change. And sustained means months, not weeks. The Hoover is designed to target your hope. But the pattern is the pattern. You cannot be the exception. You cannot love them hard enough to make them treat you with basic respect. Because the problem isn't that they don't know how to love you. They don't want to. They want a role filled, not a relationship. There's brain science behind why the Hoover works. Every time he was cruel, then apologized and became sweet, my brain released dopamine. That cycle of pain and relief created a trauma bond. The unpredictability made me crave it more. The Hoover activates that trauma bond. It gives you a hit of dopamine, but it's not real. It's a chemical response to a pattern of abuse. Here are the signs to watch for. The apology comes right when you've started to feel strong again, right when you've started to rebuild. It's not a coincidence. The apology is often bigger and more dramatic than the offense. They're apologizing for everything, taking full accountability, promising the moon. They promise therapy or growth, but there's no evidence of actual work. I've been thinking a lot is not the same as I've been in therapy for 3 months. They create urgency. I can't live without you. I need to talk to you right now. They're bypassing your logical brain. If you don't respond immediately, they escalate. They go from sweet to angry, from vulnerable to blaming. Once I understood this, I used the gray rock method. I made myself as boring and unrewarding as possible. When he texted, I responded with one word. Okay, thanks. Noted. When he tried to engage me, I gave him nothing. No emotion, no details. Just bland, neutral responses. He tried to provoke me. I responded with, I see, or didn't respond at all. It was excruciating at first, but I knew that any engagement was supplied. Any response told him he still had power over me. So I became a gray rock, and eventually he stopped trying. Even when I had to interact with him at social events, I removed my authentic self from the equation. He got the polite, surface-level version, but my real thoughts, my real feelings, those were locked away, protected. I stopped offering him my vulnerability. I accepted that the person I wanted him to be didn't exist. I learned to strictly manage what I shared. I stopped sharing good news. When I got promoted, I told close friends I trusted, but didn't let it get back to him. I stopped sharing bad news. When I was going through a hard time, I didn't let him know, because he would use it to hoover me back in. I only shared indifferent news, weather, traffic, surface observations. This protected my inner world. The hardest part was accepting that closure would never come from him. I wanted him to genuinely apologize, to truly see how much he had hurt me. But that would never come. The closure had to come from me. I had to give myself permission to walk away without his validation. Let me walk you through the concrete actions I took. First, I implemented strict no contact. I blocked his number, his email, his social media. I asked mutual friends not to pass along messages. Second, I created a document tracking every interaction, every Hoover attempt. When I felt myself weakening, I reread it. The pattern reminded me of the truth. Third, I built a support system of people who understood this kind of abuse. They reminded me what I was dealing with when my resolve wavered. Fourth, I went to therapy focused on trauma bonding. I needed professional help to untangle the cognitive distortions. Fifth, I practiced acceptance. Every day I remind myself, he is not going to change. The man I fell in love with was not real. I can only protect myself. So here's what you do when you get that text, that email, that gift. You pause. You don't respond immediately. You remind yourself, this is a retrieval operation, not a reconciliation. You look at the pattern, not the moment. Has this person actually changed their behavior in a sustained way? You ask yourself, what am I hoping for if I respond? Then you acknowledge those hopes are based on who you want them to be, not who they are. You implement gray rock if you must respond. Received. Noted. I need space. No emotion. No details. You reach out to your support system. You let them remind you of the reality you're tempted to forget. You do not meet in person. You do not give them the opportunity to deploy their full charm in real time. You watch what they do, not what they say. Behavior sustained over time is the only metric that matters. You remind yourself that any response, even negative, is supply. The only way to win is not to play. Here's what I learned about real change. Real change is slow. It happens over months and years, not days and weeks. It's boring. It's consistent. Real change involves therapy or structured work on the underlying issues. It involves taking responsibility without blaming their past or stress. Real change means they respect your no. They respect your boundaries. They don't push, manipulate, or guilt. Real change means they've done the work whether you're there or not. And here's the brutal truth. Most don't change. Not because they can't, but because they don't want to. Change requires vulnerability and self-reflection. So the apology is easier. The Hoover is easier. And the performance is easier. I blamed myself for a long time. I felt stupid for falling for it. But here's what I learned. I wasn't stupid. I was human. I wanted to believe people can change. I wanted to believe love was enough. Those aren't character flaws. Those are signs of a person capable of empathy and hope. He exploited those qualities, and that says everything about him and nothing about me. So I had to forgive myself. Every time I left, I was fighting against the trauma bond, the false hope, the manipulation. Every time I left, I was choosing myself. And eventually, I left for good. And I stayed gone. It's been 2 years since the last Hoover attempt. 2 years since I committed to no contact. My life is unrecognizable now. I didn't realize how much energy I was spending managing his moods, walking on eggshells, shrinking myself. I didn't realize how heavy that weight was until I put it down. I reconnected with friends. I pursued hobbies. I started dating again with a much clearer sense of what I would and wouldn't tolerate. I learned to trust my instincts again. That voice in my gut, I listen to it now. I learned that I don't need closure from someone else to move forward. I can give myself closure. I learned that boundaries aren't mean. They're necessary. They're how we protect our peace. And I learned that the right person won't require you to shrink or hide. The right person will love the real you. Maybe you're in the middle of your own Hoover cycle. Maybe you just got that apology text. Let me tell you what I wish someone had told me. It's not different. The pattern is the pattern. The only way to break it is to refuse to participate. You deserve better than crumbs. You deserve better than someone who only apologizes when you threaten to leave. You deserve someone who sees you, the real you. someone who doesn't need you to play a role, someone who shows up consistently, not just when they're afraid of losing you. The Hoover feels good because it gives you hope, but hope without action is just a trap. So watch what they do. Give it time. Demand consistency. And if the pattern repeats, believe it. Believe what you're seeing and walk away. You're not giving up on them. You're choosing yourself. And that's not selfish. That's survival. But most importantly, take one action today that chooses you. Maybe that's blocking a number. Maybe that's deleting an old apology email you've been rereading. Maybe it's reaching out to a friend you pushed away. Maybe it's just writing down the pattern you've been too scared to admit exists. You already know the truth. That voice in your gut, that cold knowing I talked about at the beginning, that's real. That's your instinct protecting you. Trust it. The apology is coming. Or maybe it already came. And it's going to sound like everything you've been desperate to hear. But remember this. Words without sustained behavioral change are just noise. You've heard enough noise. You deserve action. You deserve consistency. You deserve someone who doesn't need to lose you to realize your worth. So protect what you share. Become boring when you need to. Remove your real self when you can't leave yet. Build your support system. Document the pattern. Trust your gut. And forgive yourself for the times you fell for it. You're not weak. You're human. And humans want to believe in redemption. What was wrong was someone exploiting that beautiful quality. You're going to get through this. You're going to rebuild. You're going to learn to trust yourself again. And one day, you're going to look back and realize that choosing yourself, refusing to play the game one more time, was the moment everything changed. Listen, if this resonated with you, I need you to do something. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. I'm going to keep making content that validates your experience and gives you tools to protect yourself. Like and share this video so more people who need this message can find it. I believe in you. Now, go choose yourself. You've got this.